In this video, we're going to discuss the first aorist. The first aorist. It's the first of two types of aorist stems that you can have. So the first aorist is also called the weak aorist, but it is also called the sigmatic aorist. Sigmatic aorist. Sigmatic aorist because of the sigma. So in this aorist, the sigma is the identifier of the aorist. It is the aorist marker. The same way that tha is the future marker, the sigma is the aorist marker. Or I should say the first aorist marker. And let's see where it manifests itself. Tha, as the future marker, is manifested as a separate word. So you have your verb here, and you put tha here as a marker. But the sigma in the first aorist is an infix. It's not a separate word, it's an infix. If you have a word here, a prefix goes here at the beginning of the word, prefix as a part of the word. A suffix goes at the end of the word, suffix. An infix goes in the middle somewhere. So an example of a prefix, like anti-Semitic, you have Semitic and then you have anti-Semitic. That would be an example of a prefix. Anti. A suffix, you could have robot, robotic, that IC is a suffix, robotic. I can't think of any infixes off the top of my head right now in English, but the infix sigma is what tells us that the stem that we're looking at is an aorist. The sigma, the infix, the first aorist marker, is added at the end of the stem of your verb, and the last consonant interacts in a way with the sigma so that the resulting consonant it is different than what the consonant would have been if the sigma were not present. I'm going to give you a list of combinations of that final consonant with a sigma and the result, and then we'll see examples of each one of them, and then we'll actually form the first aorist. We'll actually conjugate it. So if we move this up to give us more room. So if the consonant at the end of your stem is a ni, a theta, or a zeta, and you add the sigma, the result is going to be a sigma. These would disappear and the sigma would just remain. And like I said, we will see examples of this. If the consonant at the end of your stem is a guttural, if it's a kappa, gamma, or hi, or if it's sk, chn, or z, we have zeta twice, it could have different behaviors, and you add your sigma infix, the result is going to be a xi. The sigma and the guttural, or these consonantal combinations here, they will combine to form one consonant xi. If you have a labial as the last consonant of your stem, meaning that you make the sound with your lips, either a p, a b, a vita, a phi, or if you have epsilon, ypsilon, or alpha, ypsilon, ev or f, af or av, and you add your sigma, the consonant or the ypsilon will disappear and you will be left with psi. So p, s, ps, vs, vs, it will become a psi. And in the case of epsilon, ypsilon, you will be left with eps or aps. So let's actually conjugate these now. We're going to conjugate each one of these so that we can have an example of each one. So, the way that we actually form a first aorist is we take our durative stem, and we tack on our sigma. Even though we're in the aorist past, the durative stem here is not the regular durative stem that we've been seeing. It doesn't function as the durative aspect because of this, because this, as we said, is the aorist marker. So if you see this present, you know that the function of the verb isn't the same durative continuous action, the action that does not have evidence of completion. The sigma here is negating that. If you want to think of the durative stem plus sigma as a first aorist stem, you can. I don't personally like to do that because I know that the durative stem is separate from the infix that gets tacked onto it. But if you want to, just for ease of understanding and ease of remembering, you can think of the durative stem plus a sigma and the contraction that follows as the first aorist stem. In this way, it may help you to remember that the aorist past, that the aorist aspect is giving you your first aorist stem. So, we said before, and we're going to keep saying it, the aspect gives you your stem. So here we have our durative stem with the sigma at the end, so it makes our quote-unquote first aorist stem. And then we have to add on what endings. If we look back at the chart for the sequence of tenses, we will see that the aorist past is a secondary sequence of tenses. So we have to add on secondary endings. So let's look at each one of the consonants that ends the stem and see how we can form each one of these examples into actually conjugated first aorist verbs. So the first one, if your consonant ends in a ni, we will give as an example the verb sikono. So you, you add on your sigma, and then you add on your secondary endings. And the first person singular ending in the secondary endings is an a, as we've seen. So what you do next, sikon, the sigma makes the ni disappear, as we said above. So you're left with a sigma. So you have sikosa. Alpha is short, as we said, so the accent goes on the antepenult. Sikosa, I lifted. Sikono means I lift. Sikosa means I lifted. The next is theta. If your stem ends in a theta, we have as an example the word nyotho, which means I feel. So nyoth plus your sigma, so you have your durative stem plus your sigma as your aorist marker, plus alpha. We're just going to focus on first person singular just to make things easy. Your sigma is going to make your theta disappear, so you're going to be left with nyos. A is short, the accent goes on the antepenult that does not exist. This iota here functions as a glide. It's not niosa, it's nyo. So you're going to be left with enyosa. As we said, the temporal augment appears only in the secondary sequence of tenses when the accent would fall on the antepenult, but the antepenult isn't there. So here we have enyosa. The next one is zeta. So this is the zeta that becomes a sigma. It is not the zeta as we saw earlier, the second zeta where it becomes a ks. But we'll see that one too. So we have as a verb yemizo, which means I fill. So yemizo. Yemiz plus your aorist marker, your first aorist marker, plus a as your first person singular ending. Yemi, the zeta disappears, the sigma remains. Alpha is short, accent goes on the antepenult. Γέμισα, I filled. Now we enter the gutturals, the land of the gutturals. For kappa, if your stem ends in a kappa, we have pleko. Pleko means I weave. So, plek plus sigma plus alpha. Sigma and kappa to mix together. Perhaps it's called assimilation. I didn't look into this. They become a ks. Ks, ks. Alpha is short, accent goes on the antepenult. Antepenult isn't there. This is a secondary sequence of tense. So, epsilon, eplexa, gamma. If it ends in a gamma, these are all going to be very similar. Anigo. Anigo means I open. Excuse me. Anigo. Anig plus sigma plus alpha, first person singular. The gamma and the sigma merge together, forming a ks. A ksi. Alpha is short. Accent goes on the antepenult. Anixa, I opened. Now we're left with, just, I guess this is we're only halfway through these. He, prosejo. Oops, prosejo. Prosejo means I am careful or I watch over something. Prosejo. Prosech plus your sigma plus a. Sigma plus he makes a ks, as we said. Alpha is short, accent goes on the antepenult. Prosexa. I watched over or I was careful. Next we have sk. If your stem ends in sigma kappa, then what do we have? We have didasco, which means I teach. Oops, didask plus sigma plus a. Sigma kappa merge with sigma, and we have ks. Alpha is short, accent goes on the iota. Didaxa, I taught. Chn. If the stem ends in chn, we have psachno as an example. Psachno, which means I search. Psachn plus sigma plus alpha for the first person singular. Sigma merges with chn to make psaxa. Alpha short, accent goes on the antepenult. This is a secondary sequence of tenses. So if the antepenult is not there, we add the temporal augment epsilon and accentuate it. Epsaxa, I searched. And last but not least, for the gutturals, we have zita. So this is the second zita. Some words with that end, whose stem end in zita, follow the paradigm above, where the sigma makes the zeta drop away and you're left with just sigma. But some other ones contract or assimilate with the zeta and they make a ks. So here we have kitazo. That's an omicron. Kitazo. We have kitaz plus sigma plus alpha. The zeta and sigma merge together. Kitaxa. Alpha is short, accent the antepenult. Now we enter the labials. Let me just move this up. Okay. So we have B. If the stem ends in P, we have lipo, which means I am missing. Lipo. Sigma, alpha. Your P and your sigma are going to merge together to form a ps, a psi. Alpha is short, accent goes, and the antepenult. Antepenult's not there. This is secondary sequence of tenses. So you put a temporal augment and you accentuate it. Ellipsa, I was missing. Vita. For vita, we have our favorite verb. Krivo, which means I hide. Stem is kriv. Add on your first aorist infix. Add on your ending. Vita and sigma merge together to make a ps. Alpha is short. Accent goes in the antepenult. Add the temporal augment accentuated. Ekripsa, I hid. Phi, we have vafo, which means I paint. Vaf, oops, no accent. That accent should not be there. Vaf plus sigma plus alpha. Phi and sigma merge together to make a ps. Alpha is short. Evapsa. And the last two, ev, we have dulevo, which means I work. Dulevo. Dulevo, as we said above, the epsilon and the sigma are going to merge together to make up C. So these two merge together to make up C. Oops, that's an alpha. Alpha is short, accent goes in the antepenult. Dulepsa, I work. And last but not least, alpha epsilon, we have bavo. Similar thing to what we just saw above. Bav plus sigma plus alpha. The sigma and the epsilon are going to merge together. Papsa, alpha is short, accent goes in the antepenult. Epapsa, I stopped. So I'm going to use krivo, and I'm going to conjugate the full conjugation in all the persons. So we have kriv plus sigma plus a. Then we have plus s plus e plus ame plus ate plus an. These are the secondary endings, which equal kripsa. Accent goes on the antepenult, so ekripsa. Accent goes on the antepenult. Ekripses, similar thing. Ekripse. Epsilon short, accent goes on the antepenult. Kripsame. Epsilon short, accent goes on the antepenult. Kripsate. Oops. Alpha short, accent goes on the antepenult. So we have ekripsa, ekripses, ekripse, ekripsam, ekripsate, ekripsan. I hid, you hid, he hid, we hid, you hid, they hid. So if we make our formula, which we've looked into extensively, but let's just write it out just to be formal. For the first aorist past, we take our durative stem, we add a sigma, and then we add our secondary endings. And that's pretty much it for the first aorist. The first aorist uses the durative stem, but the durative stem does not function in the same way that it normally would as a continuous action, an action that does not have evidence of completion. The sigma contracting with the final consonant of the durative stem makes the durative stem into an aorist stem so that the aorist aspect prevails. And the aorist aspect, as we said, does not give us any information about the action of the verb. All it tells us is that it occurs or it occurred. That's all it tells us. It's as we said that the aspect tells us something about the action of the verb as it extends over time, but the aorist is, it doesn't tell us anything. Its job is not to tell us anything. So in this way, we just see that the action in the past occurred. I hid. That's it. I hid. It doesn't tell us about continuity of time. It doesn't continuity over time. It doesn't tell us anything. It just says that it happened. So now, having seen the first type of aorist passed, or rather the first type of aorist stem, we're going to look at the second aorist, or the strong aorist. And it's more simple than this. It just takes a little bit more memorization.